Hello there, I'm Martin Cross. This is Cross's Corner, and I have an amazing guest today. So excited to talk to Brooke Mooney, world silver medalist in the women's 8, and of course, world record holder on the 2K Concept 2 erg. Hi, Brooke.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So excited that you're here today, and we can talk. There's so much to talk about. I kind of wonder, just maybe to get started. I guess you're back in training now. How's your day been?
We're back in training. We've been ramping up the fall training. Right now, I had a little bit of a hiccup with my back. So this morning was a different kind of training for me. I actually hit the swimming pool and did a swimming workout as my morning workout.
What do you like as a swimmer?
I grew up doing swim team, and I just really like now how it's a non weight bearing, and it's super beneficial for your spinal fluid and just getting the weight off the spine. So that's something I use just like rehab in a low impact way.
Oh, that's great. And do you know how long you'll have to be in the pool, or are you just going to wait and see how the rehab goes?
I think it's just taking it day by day right now. So I mean, it could be just this week, but I don't. Right now is not the time to push it and then regret it 3 months later when we're in Olympic selection. So I'm making sure everything is done right, and then but when we're hit the ground running in December, we're ready to go, and there'll be no more hiccups, knock on wood, through the rest of this Olympic year.
Yeah. Before we get on to the Worlds this year and your amazing performance, I was reading through stuff about you, and I saw the thing brain operation.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought, oh, that's not usual. And then I saw a little bit of background on it, but maybe you could just talk us through that, because it sounds serious. What was it?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely not something that many people know. It's not I'm open and I'm happy to talk about it. But it's not ever something I enter in a conversation. So it was, I started having symptoms in, I believe, 2016, the summer of 2016. I was getting these really bad headaches, and I was like, okay, maybe I'm dehydrated. It's summer.
Yeah.
I'll just take Tylenol and Excedrin, see how if that helps. Nothing helped. The headaches kept on getting worse and worse, to migraine intensity headaches. But I wouldn't have visual auras. I would just not be able to function and be so uncomfortable. I'd be nauseous. So I went to a few doctors. Many of them you're probably just dehydrated, or everything checks out, just work on your hydration. I'm I'm training as an athlete full time. This was in college, so not as full time right now, but it's still full time. I'm pretty sure I'm not this dehydrated that I'm getting headaches that these headaches would last weeks, months, and there's nothing I could do about them.
My God.
And so then I go back to school at Washington, and I'm trying to just proceed as normal, which for the most of the year I could do everything I needed to do. And then there was I was sitting in class in the spring, and I told my teacher, I was before class, I was I'm not feeling great. I have a migraine coming on. I might not be able to make it through the class. I might just have to leave early. So about halfway through the class, I'm just my head is pounding. I cannot sit in this classroom. So I leave and I go to the training room, and I just walk into the doctor's office, whoever happens to be there. I had never met them before. And I walk in and I was I am so tired of this. We have tried absolutely everything. We've all sorts of medications. We did inject a steroid injection, everything possible. Nothing was helping. And he's have you gotten an MRI yet? And I was no. And he's okay, let's order an MRI. So I go get an MRI. And before I even get back to the doctor's office, I get a call from University of Washington Medical Center and be okay, we need to schedule your surgery. I'm excuse me, what? I don't know what surgery. So luckily it was, it's a very rare thing. It's a Rathke's cleft cyst, and it's very rare, but it's very treatable. So I found out in April, I think it was around April. I also had strep that same week, so it was just, like double whammy. And I had like multiple doctor's appointments, and they said that if like it wasn't an emergency surgery at that point, but the one of the surgeons, like if you can or if you can sense that you're losing eyesight and you can tell you're going blind, or your eyesight's narrowing, then we're gonna have to have like emergency surgery. Not like that day you need to get in. It's like, okay, we need to schedule this now. Because I was not gonna give up the rest of my spring season for this. So I went through the rest of the spring season.
With the migraines?
What?
With the headaches?
Yeah. I was so determined to finish this season. So we went through the rest of the season. We ended up sweeping NCAAs in Princeton, New Jersey, which I'm like so glad I was there for that. And then a couple weeks later, I had brain surgery, and then took the whole summer pretty much to recover, and then was back at it for senior year.
That's insane that you would not want to give up your season for something like that. I guess you took medical advice, but the other thing, in terms of your pain threshold, I guess you must have quite a high pain threshold.
Yeah, I think I do. Yes, I for sure. I think like looking back at it, I feel like the headaches were just part of my life at that point. I was like, well, I have a headache. Like, let's go row. Maybe this will help. I don't think there was ever a workout that I didn't do because of my headaches. At least once we got into the school year.
Yeah.
I mean, I think most rowers have pretty high pain thresholds.
Yeah. I guess they might do, but it does seem quite striking. Thank you for sharing that. I did say we were going to talk about the result in Belgrade. Amazing, really. Was that what you were hoping for, more than you hoped for that silver medal?
I mean, I think going into it, obviously our goal was to win. That is what we set out to do. That is what we believed we could do. And our heat race was just one of those races where everything clicked and we were just so dialed in with each other. It was so relaxed. And I look back and I'm like, oh my God, that was just like everything, like the cards just lined up for that race.
Yeah.
And we hadn't, you're very like in prep for Worlds, you very rarely ever do full out like 2,000 meters.
Yeah.
So we're working through different parts of the race, and shorter pieces and long pieces. But then when we did this, it was like every single part that we had worked on and we knew we wanted to improve on from practice, we did. Like Nina asked for something, we gave it to her.
Yeah.
It was just one of those races. Like I'm getting chills right now. It's like everything. It was great. It was like, I would say, as close to a perfect race as I've been a part of. So then going into the final, I think it gave us a ton of confidence, which was great. Like to have confidence going into a final is huge. I won't say it's free speed, because no one, people say you can't really have free speed, but confidence going into a final, especially an Olympic qualifying year, that was really great to have. And you could just feel the boat. Like we were just a little bit sharper through our practices. And for the day of the final, we were all dialed in. Everything was normal. We start, and we didn't have a bad start. It could have been better, absolutely.
Yeah.
But by no means did we have a bad start. And then we're just dropped. I'm like, okay, not exactly where we expected to be coming off the start, but the race is just starting. We got plenty of time to dial in and get to a position. At first it was get to the qualifying position. That's no questions asked. Number one, when we're in that position, it's okay, you need to just get yourself in qualifying.
Yeah.
And once again, we just listened to Nina. She asked for something, we gave it to her. And slowly we just like crept our way back up. And then I think we kind of clicked into like a little bit more of our rhythm partway through that race. And that's when we really started to walk through the field.
Yeah.
And then the last 500 meters, I've heard and been a part of the sayings of the US doesn't know how to sprint. And that was our goal, was to be able to sprint. Like we worked through that for practices. And like, we want to be able to sprint. And I think that we proved it to ourselves and to people who might have doubted that like the sprinting ability in some US crews, like, no, we sprinted. Like we absolutely sprinted for that place. And I am like, we're so happy that we ended up on the podium, so happy with second place. It definitely, like, we have a fire under us. Everyone has a fire under them to see if we can get a little bit more for next year. But I think this was a great breakthrough for like US rowing as a whole, even for the whole entire regatta, that it was some results that were very exciting across the board and some that we haven't necessarily seen in a few years.
Yeah. Were you at all bothered before the race about finishing the top 5, or did you have so much confidence you thought, you know, well, we're going to do that?
I mean, I definitely was nervous for it, absolutely. But I was so confident in like our boat as a whole and trusting Nina that we would get the job done.
Yeah.
So it was more just like trusting ourselves that we could do it and not being like, oh, I know that we're faster than XYZ. It's like, no, I just trust us and I trust our training and I know we can get it done.
Yeah. So the women's 8 was the top boat in the team, I'm guessing.
I would say the 4 was technically the top boat because they stayed together from World Cup.
Ah, so that's really quite interesting. So in a sense, so the 4 have qualified as well.
Yes, and the women's pair. So all of the sweet boats are qualified.
Yeah. So is there like a queue? Do you think that everyone's going to try and get in the women's? How will it go next year?
This is actually a great question. I have no idea. They have not told us anything about priority for boat classes. I have no idea.
Yeah. What do you think?
I think it will probably depend on the speed of boats as we're looking at combinations in selection camp.
Yeah.
I think if there's a combination for the 4 that's going really well, then maybe they would be like, okay, this is the base of it. Let's just try a couple people, but like they're really moving. We want to keep them together. Same for a pair, or even an 8. If they like put an 8 together, like, wow, like that's clicking right away. And like, that's how I would see it, is like try some lineups, see what's moving, and then go from there. But once again, like I truly don't know.
Yeah. So with the pair, is Alison and will Alison and Megan stay out on the West Coast?
They're out there right now for the fall, and then starting in January, the cruise that ended up like the higher performing cruise will go do a camp in Colorado, and then we'll all go down to Florida. So I think once we hit those camps, they'll come and join us. But right now they're training on the West Coast.
Yeah. Do you have it's kind of a stupid question, really. I'm just wondering if you have a preference for a boat you'd like. Well, I guess you'd like to be at Paris, so that's your first preference.
Exactly. Any boat is a boat. I just want to race.
So
yeah.
And if you had a choice, what would it be?
Probably the 8. I feel like I learned so much about like being an 8, like in the 8 this past summer, and I know it's like I've also been in 4 since then, and I was able to translate it, but I just love 8s. Yeah.
So tell us what you love about them, and also what you've learned, because that sounds fascinating. Because I know we can talk a little later about your experience in Tokyo in the women's 8. But yeah, what do you love, and what have you learned?
Like what I love is that you have 8 rowers and a coxswain, and to make a fast boat, it's got to be one unit. And I just like, I love the feeling of when it comes together, or the process of it coming together, and you can just feel the energy. You can feel everyone as one. And like once you have that, you're like unstoppable. You can do anything. And it's just like, it's such a good feeling to have that. And I've definitely felt that in a few different lineups and in different parts of my rowing career. And every single time, I'm like, this is something special.
Yeah. And what about? It sounded like you've learned quite a bit this year from what you were saying.
Yeah. So in the past, I've always usually have gone about rowing as just go hard, like you're like blade in and go. Like you're just going on it, especially in like the engine room and with my like erging and stuff. It's like I always think it's like, okay, your job is just to go, like just go.
Yeah.
And this year I really learned, like I feel like I became more technically proficient and was able to, instead of just go, like just find the rhythm and like more like with the legs, like really feel the legs of everyone else and add to that, instead of just trying to go as hard as you can, which might end up taking away from someone else because you're stealing the pin, which is, so I was like, sharing the pin is something that we talked a lot about, is so make sure everyone has equal like suspension on the pin. And I feel like that is something that like really clicked with me. And every single time like I made that change, the people around me were like, oh my God, that was like, it felt so much better. Like you can just feel your suspension instead of just trying to like erg the boat down the course. So that's the big change that I worked on. And then like now this fall, I've been working on doing it in fours and pairs as well.
Yeah.
And the four was a little bit easier to figure out than the pair. The pair will be it's going to be a long path before I feel like I fully
yeah. So it sounds like that was a front end thing of how to do the front end of the stroke that you're talking about in synchronicity with the fellow women in the boat.
Yeah, because I like, at least this summer, I was like front end. Like we need more front end. And as we got close to the racing, we like figured out what we needed. But as a result of that, if I'm like sitting in 4-seat and I try to add a front end that the people like, if I'm trying to add too much front end, it's just going to make the boat heavy.
Yeah.
So it was like finding the balance and like finding the front end together, then not just everyone hit the front end.
So I'm imagining that you were rowing differently in the sprint in Belgrade at the World Championships to we might talk about this later, to the sprint that you did at the end of your 2K world beating ergo.
Yeah, they were, I would say the sprint for my erg was definitely a little bit, I mean, I guess they were in some ways similar. They both started around the 750 mark.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking that you have a consciousness about moving with other people through on the pin together, and I'm imagining that that's how you felt the boat moved so quickly during that last part of the race in Belgrade.
Yeah. That we were just like really dialed in with each other, and it's like when they say go, you go.
Yeah. How much is that down to the input of Jesse Foglia?
I think it's a huge input. Like there was such great buy-in and trust for him as a coach, and we also had Adrienne Martelli with us for part of the summer.
Yeah.
So it was fun to have her, and I think like it shows how far the team has come, and there was no like Jesse wanted us to do something, no questions asked, we do it. And I think it was clear throughout the whole process that he was like very receptive to what we were feeling and what we were thinking. And then like there was a couple times where I would like talk to him and he would already have been like, yeah, no, I saw that. Like we are like already would be on to the next. Like he was always like 5 steps ahead of us. He would see a problem in the boat well before we even realized what it was and was already addressing it. And I think just that there was so much trust with him continued today. That he was going to get us, he was going to give us everything we needed to have the result that we wanted.
How does Josi Verdonschot interface with you? Like, what's his level of involvement?
He does a little bit of coaching here and there. I know he worked with the 4 mostly when he has done the coaching and some of the sculling boats as well. But mostly he just oversees the program, helps with training plans and all of like the logistics and fundraising, and he's the boss. So whatever he says, we do.
And I guess you're happy with that situation. You must feel confident in him and in the situation.
Yeah, it's very different than what I experienced in the past. And I think it was a great time to make the transition after Tokyo. And I'm excited to see what this new group of US rowing can do next year and continuing after.
Just before we move on to other parts of your races, I wonder how you feel about just running down your 8 from bow to Cox and just giving us a little personality portrait of those women in the US Women's 8.
Yeah, so some of them, it was their first ever World Championships. Actually, it was my first ever World Championships racing in a boat. And bow, we had Emily Freilich. She has been rowing up in Craftsbury with the Green Racing Project, and before that, she was in Texas.
That's where you rode, wasn't it?
I rode there like a couple summers.
Yeah.
And then also did a bunch of skiing up there as well.
Yeah.
And so she came from Craftsbury. She was going to go to Pan American Games in the 4 and then ended up giving up that spot and made the 8 for World Championships. So that was.
What's she like? What's her personality like?
It's like she will always pull the best out of everyone. Like some days, like I'll walk up and I'll like, I don't know, be down about something, and then she'll like, will just like say something to just completely turn it around. She's like, no, like that's not you. We're like, move past it. Like we got better things to do. So she was always like getting the best out of people. And whenever we had any like boat like bonding kind of things, she would prompt us with like questions to get to know each other better. Or what, like one thing I remember is when we had an all-you-can-eat sushi night, we wrote down what our goals for World Championships are and what are some of the values that we see in this boat. And we held those like all the way to the end. Like I think I still have mine written down. So she was kind of the person that was
orchestrating that.
Yeah, and just like diving a little bit deeper into each person and then like the boat as a whole.
Yeah. 2-seat?
What? Margaret Hedeman. She just came from Yale. I didn't really know her at all before this summer, and then we ended up rooming together for 2.5 weeks in Italy. So I really got to know her then. And she's new, like just out of college. She's got the like great young energy, and she's one of those rowers that if she wants to, she could be rowing in this for years and years and years. She just has a great attitude about it. And in Italy, she was working on applying to postbacks, and that really inspired me to like look at going back to school and stuff like that. So she's definitely pushed me in and out of the boat.
Yeah.
And 3C, we have it was Jess Thonis, and Jess and I have known each other for a very long time. She and I were on the same recruiting trip to University of Washington, and both went to University of Washington, and then both came to the training center right after. So we have rowed together through everything, blood, sweat, and tears. Like we have shared all of that with each other, and I like value like her friendship so much because there's very few people in your life that you like go through that much together. Like we have been through the ringer. Like, we were in the 4V, I think, at Washington our sophomore year together. I think it was the 4V. And then we like crawled our way up to like the 1V and 2Vs for our junior and senior year.
Yeah.
And she impresses me every single day. She's like got such a good work ethic. And then there's Regina, who is, her personality is like, she's so bubbly and loud in a good way. Like she has so much energy, and like similar to Emily, but like different but similar. It's like if you're in a bad mood or you need someone to just like, I just need someone like just like change it, like or like also like to help you get out of it, or just someone to be like, no, like you are so much better than this. Like don't let those thoughts like in your head, or like she was just such a hype woman, is such a hype woman. So it was fun to have her like in the middle, just like hyping out through that. And then in front of her was Alina. Alina is someone, she's very quiet at first, but then once you get to know her, she is hilarious. And it's just like you just won't, like, she'll just crack a joke at any time she can. Like, it's like, yeah, she definitely comes off quiet at first, but then like she is such a genuine person, and I am so happy I was pair partners with her, because she would also, since she was right behind me, she could whisper little sweet nothings in my ear.
Okay.
And she did that, and I really appreciated it. And she was so helpful, like with like things that I was trying to figure out. She's absolutely amazing. And then there's myself in 6 seat, and then Daisy, or Mary, but she goes by Daisy.
Yeah.
She's in front, and she is, I feel like, another one of those rowers that is just like a lifetime rower. Like she could, like, I don't know if I have a word for it right now, but like she is so dedicated and loves the sport so much that I just see her rowing forever. Like, not like she on the national team after, and I also like her mom was a very accomplished rower.
Yeah.
Also, a beautiful thing, and a most beautiful thing. And like it, yeah. To be able, I honestly, like, I look up to her and I was like, if I could just row as well as you can, then like this would be great. So like it was, she also came from Craftsbury, and then was at Yale before, and was also going to go to Pan American Games, but then was in the 8 and did not go. And then in front of her was Charlotte Buck. Charlotte joined the national team right before or during COVID. She was our only COVID edition. She had done one of, I think, Rower's Choice erg, like their erg challenges or erg races, and she did really well. She beating one of the national team girls that did it, and that just like caught the eye of Tom Terhart at the time, and they joined. And she'd been rowing single mostly, and she came and showed up and started to destroy everyone in the single. I was like, wow. Okay. I see how this is going to go. And she'd been training. She came from Columbia and then had been training in singles. And we were in singles for COVID. That most of that entire year we were running singles, and it was just Charlotte Buck and then everyone else. And I was like, all right, let's just see if we can close the gap just a little bit. And then she made the 8 in Tokyo. Her and it was like there's a few of us that extra year really benefited us. And I don't think without that extra year, I don't think she would have made it because she wouldn't have been invited, because the team would have already been named. And then I also definitely benefit from the extra year. And I'm so glad she's on the team. And she did a wonderful job stroking. She did a great job and was even in stroke, she was still making the changes and working on everything that we were working on. It wasn't all like, okay, she's your stroke, go do what she's doing. It was definitely like a boat mentality. And then our coxswain was Nina, and she just graduated from University of Washington. The second she showed up at selection camp, the first practice that she came and was coxswaining one of the eights, I was like, this girl has something special.
Wow.
I haven't heard it from a coxswain in a little while. I was like, this girl, she's got it. I don't who knows if she'll make it this year, but if she sticks with it, she'll be one of the best coxswains out there. And I'm obviously love that she went to Washington. I'm glad that we have that as well. And but she's phenomenal. I'm speechless about it. It's she's absolutely amazing, and she's great boat feel, and just her calls. I was like, oh my God, you are also multiple steps ahead of us. You can feel it as it's shifting, as rhythm is shifting, you could call it right back before it gets too far. And it was she was on top of it. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, they're beautiful little portraits. Thank you for that. And I was just it just popped into my head. You guys, the women from the squad raced each other in the head of the Charles, which seemed to be a ridiculously close verdict.
Yeah. I think it came down to a coxswain's race. Nina steered a great course in the University of Washington Alumni 8 as well. And I don't know who I was talking to about this the other day, but I was like, it was a coxswain's race when it comes down to that much. It's there's margins that make a big difference on that course. It's the turns, the buoys, the gusts of wind. But when we were practicing before Head the Charles, Jesse was out on a launch and we were just rowing 2/8 just around for fun. And he's like, wow, it is so special to see 16 people all rowing together. So I think that shows the just the unity of the team right now. But that was a very, very tight racing for Heather Charles.
Okay, so you've talked about the 8 for 2023, and you were also selected for the Olympic 8 in 2021. Be interesting to get any similarities or differences. I know some of the women were in both 8s.
Yeah, there was 4 of us in both of the 8s. I feel like the big difference that I for myself is in that 8, I was one of the youngest ones. I was just all right, you're gonna put your head down, you're gonna row, you're you go with what the more experienced people are saying. I'm like, that's fine, you're more experienced, I don't know what I'm talking about. And then this time around, I was one of the oldest people in the 8, or top half. It was a very young 8 though. Everyone was 27, I think was maybe the oldest, maybe 28.
Yeah, I think the oldest was 28 in that crew.
Yeah. The shift in dynamic, and how I felt that it was for me, I will not speak for everyone. For me, it felt more collaborative this year, and that everyone was on the same page about what we were doing, what we were trying to change. And I think the Tokyo 8, we were the focus was something different than what we were working on, leading up to the last bit of prep. And we changed our lineup a week before the racing started, maybe. And I do think there was a lot to benefit from spending more time in the lineup like we did this past year.
Yeah. That's really interesting. One thing I kind of wanted to ask you is, how do you wear the crown? How easily do you wear the crown of world's best on 2K?
I mean, it's definitely something that I get reminded about a lot, but for me, that was it was just a 2K. Like it didn't, obviously it was amazing. I am so proud of that piece, and it went way better than I ever expected it to. But it was just this, like, it was just another checkpoint in the Olympic selection year. And it, like, I would love to go, like, give it another shot. But at the same time, like, I think it was one of those pieces that it just kind of went perfectly, and you very rarely get that. And
a bit like your first heat in the eights.
Wait,
in Belgrade?
Oh, yes. Yeah, similar to that, where just like something clicked and you like an overwhelming power of like outside yourself, and like the 8 is like the overpowering of like the 1, like 9 making 1, and for the erg it was just like an out of body experience almost. And I hope I'm in a position to give it another shot, but at the same time I'm not doing what I'm doing to like have world records on the erg. Like, I, more than anything, is like I want to be competing on the water in the Olympics. And if I don't end up having another personal best and setting another world, or like if I'm breaking my own like personal best, like I will be okay with that, because that my goal is not, like, my goal is to race at the Paris Olympics.
Yeah. You explained how well you get on, or how well the crew and the women in the squad bonded. Do you get a sense that people look at you differently because you're the 2K world record holder?
Yes, not as much like from the team. I feel like everyone, like, we all understand that we're one team with the same goal, but like outside of our little bubble, whether I'm at Heather Charles or even at Worlds, or just like I coach at high school too, so it's like at a high school regatta. That's where I definitely start to see it more. And they're like, "Oh my God, are you Brooke Mooney?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am," because it's not something I like. I also don't like. If it comes up, I will talk about it, but it's I don't usually talk about all of my like successes, just like wherever, whenever. But even a couple nights ago, I was at the New York Athletic Club all sports banquet, and there's a guy sitting next to me, and he was messaging some of his buddies that were racing, that he raced with ahead of Schuylkill. And one of them was like, "You should ask Brooke Mooney what her erg score is." And he told me this, and I told him my erg score, and he's like, "Oh my God, that's amazing." So it comes up almost it comes up everywhere.
What was it? Sorry, carry on.
No, it's good.
What was it like the next time you got on an erg to do a 2K? Do you remember that?
I do. Yeah. So we did a 2K. This was in March, and we did another one, I believe, in May. And I was warned that the next 2K is going to be the worst 2K of your life. That was the warning I had. And I took my data from the 2K in March, and then made a plan for the next 2K. And there's a 5 split difference between my first 1,000 and my last 500. So my goal was to start faster and then see how it progressed from there. And I did my goal. I started faster. I held on. I think I negative split it, or was close to. The first 500 might have been a little bit faster, and then we get to the point where I'm hoping to sprint, and the sprint just didn't really happen. And still had a great piece. It was, I think it was like a 6:24 maybe. Which was my second fastest 2K I'd ever done. So I was still happy with that. But it was like, I think I had felt this like amazing sprint in the piece before, and I was like, "Oh, I can do that again for sure." But realistically, that's not a guarantee that you're going to be able to sprint the same every single time.
So it sounds like you're quite a planner in terms of how you want to do things.
Yeah, I love a negative split, and I love having like my goals, because even in the middle of a piece, if you can just have little like checkpoints and mental checks of like, all right, I did this, I did this, like it helps me just like it feels better as you're going through the pieces. Like, all right, we're accomplishing this, this, and this. Like, yeah, let's keep going. Like, we got more. And even if it's a bad piece, or you're not, like, you go into it and you're like, okay, I'm not, like, this isn't, I know this, or the training cycle is like, we're not trying to PR. This is a piece. Like, there's checkpoints. It's in the fall when you're not necessarily as fit as you are in the spring. Like, there's still good planning and good checkpoints you can have to help yourself have a good piece. And not every piece is going to be a PR. We know that. And all sports, all ages, it definitely like goes up and down. And I think just having a plan and being able to execute a plan is what makes it a good piece.
And who taught you that, or when did you start doing that? Was that something from when you were a kid, or have you grown into it?
I gotta believe Yaz Farouk at Washington was the
Okay.
first one to like kind of get that going. And I definitely remember that we would talk to her if we like, or one of the other coaches about having a plan for pieces. And even she would recommend that we'd write down like get a piece of athletic tape, write down our like goal splits for like the workout. Each, say we're doing like a 4x10 minute workout, write down our goal split for each 10 minutes. And then so you like have it there and you can like cross off. It's like, no, I went faster. So she definitely was the start of the planning.
Yeah. And Yaz has been a big influence on you, hasn't she?
Yes, she has been a huge influence. I do not think she's one of the coaches that I do not think I would be here without. I didn't even know what the national team was. I didn't even know it was something I could potentially do until my senior year at Washington. I think it was like my senior winter too. And she's the one that helped and like push me into this, like towards this direction.
How does she do that? Just how much pushing did you need?
I think to start, she definitely pushed me to be a better athlete. And I think through being a better athlete, then it started to open up doors. And as like my ergs got faster, then that is an indicator to like Tom and Laurel. That's like, okay, this might be someone we want to look at. But I didn't know that was happening. I didn't know that was something that does happen. So I think it was Yaz helped me be a better athlete, and she is great friends with Tom and Laurel. So I think that's then like, it's like, oh, we have some athletes. I wasn't the only one. It was like, we have some athletes that I think would be potential national team athletes. And I know that college coaches across the US are in communication with are the national team coaches in recruitment. And I also did an ID camp out at Washington. So that was also a way to like kind of open the door for the first time.
Yeah. And then the door opened for you in 2019. You were in that, was it the first World Cup in 2019?
Yeah, I went to the first 2 World Cups in 2019.
Oh, the first 2 World Cups. Yeah.
So I graduated and joined the team immediately in 2018, but then went to Henley with the University of Washington. So kind of missed the selection, but also I am very, like looking back, very grateful. I was just training and getting a feel for it all and not just like thrown into it. It's like that summer, just getting in pairs and getting used to the training was very beneficial. And then in the winter of 2019, I was paired up with Megan Misnicki, and we were rowing a pair together a bunch. And we did well at the NSRs in Chula, which then I think kind of put us on the track of, all right, go race the pair for World Cup. I had never raced at a World Cup. I had never raced a pair at like a high level. And she was someone who has accomplished more than like most of us could ever dream of. So having her and all of her accomplishments kind of help me like get my footing in this and like pretty much teach me how to race a World Cup and at this like be at this level was such a great opportunity. And we doubled up in a 4 as well since we were already going out there. And then for World Cup 2, I was in the 8 with her, and then most of the people who were in the 8 for World Championships.
That was the Australians that you were up against there,
Yes.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm intrigued because you had a decent result in the pair out there. You won the B final. When you said earlier at the start when we were talking that you said rather wistfully, or the pair is going to take a longer time or something like that. And I kind of wondered when you said it, I wonder that's really interesting. I had a similar thing to rowing in a pair when I was, that it was something that you had to graduate into. It wasn't, something that you could just do automatically. But what is it with you?
Like for me, it takes me, at least this is what I feel about myself. It takes me a little bit to really find each other with whoever I'm rowing with. Like I'm not someone, I don't have enough pair experience that I can just hop in and just go and be race ready in a couple days. Like I definitely need the time and the prep and just the distance in a pair with someone to be ready or to feel confident to race. Obviously any of us could hop in and go race. Like that's not the issue, but to feel them like fully confident in myself and have been rowing with this person who's like, no, like we're dialed in, we get it. That's where I just feel like I take a little bit longer to figure that out.
Yeah. And so I guess for this winter, you've mentioned sculling as something that people do. I guess you're in small boats, which would include pairs this winter.
Yeah. We're mostly in pairs right now. There are some people sculling and they're more in the sculling track, and then the sweepers are in pairs right now for the sweep track.
And I guess it'd be unexpected if anyone outside of the women who went to the World Championships managed to force their way into the team. I'm thinking it's going to be very difficult for a college student to make their way into the team this year, an Olympic year.
So there are a few ways that people can still try to get into the team. Since the selection does happen earlier, any collegiate athletes will have to take, or I would sense that they would have to take the year off from college because the first checkpoint is this fall. And then there's another one in the middle of the winter. So there's definitely, the door is not closed for athletes that are outside of like the training, training pool right now, but you have to make sure like you're performing and dialed in for the checkpoints to have a result that will make Yossi interested.
So the draw of the Olympics is extraordinary, and you must have felt that around being involved with the team for Tokyo.
Yeah, I think it's just the success that this group has had in the past is so inspiring, and I just hope that now like we're on track to start our own like era. We're calling it like a new era. And to be able to be remembered for who we are and what we're doing, the way that like the group earlier was remembered for winning like 10 years in a row, which is insane and still inspiring to this day.
Yeah. It didn't feel a bit of a burden, that legacy, at any stage, did it?
It definitely did. And I think it took a while for us to work through that and realize that like, no, this is like, they're not the same athletes, not the same coaches, that it is time for like, it's like us to write our names in the history books. Like they did it. That's that era. This is totally different. And we cannot like, definitely like we want to be able to do what they do, but realistically, like so much has changed from then, and we really just need to like do what we want to do and race for ourselves to be able to write our names in.
Yeah. So, how was the Tokyo experience for you? It was one of very odd games, but I guess in terms of I was out there commentating at the course, and that seemed quite normal. I couldn't even see where the crowds would have sat, so I didn't even notice that they weren't there in one way. But how was it for you?
I think it was lots of it felt like any other World Cup, World Championships, because of there were no fans.
Mm.
And it was like still like a little bit like business trip mentality. Like we're here, we're going to race. Like that's the plan. That's what we're here to do. But then you hear the stories from people who were in past Olympics, and there's just so much more to the Olympics, like the fanfare, the meeting of the other athletes, having your friends and family there, all this stuff that we didn't get to do.
Yeah.
And we were there, spitting in COVID test tubes every single morning and walking to the dining hall and sitting in plexiglass, little like cubicles to eat our food. So it was very, very different. But also one of the most unique Olympic experiences that I feel like anyone maybe has had to date. And I hope that no one that every Olympics goes off as planned. But I also think that's what makes Paris so much more exciting, is that it, knock on wood, would be back to a more normal Olympics.
Yeah. Speaking as someone who has experience coming forth in the Olympics, what was your reaction to that finish?
I definitely think overall it was an underperformance, and we knew that we could have done better. And if we had lined up and raced the next day, who knows, it could have been different as well. And I think that the big thing that I look at that is that we did not have much race experience with COVID. There was almost 2 years of no racing. And I personally, I would have benefited from being able to line up on a start line, have at least one other race under our belt.
Yeah, that's a great shout, because it takes a big call to say, we'll go through the rep. I have known crews to say, we're going to race this race, but actually we want another race in the rep. But that would be quite a big call for the crew or Tom Tahar to have made, to say. It worked for the New Zealand men's 8, didn't it? Although they weren't actually trying to do it.
I mean, we joked about it after the fact, but we would have never, I don't think this boat would have ever been able to do, we're lining up, we're starting, we're giving it our all. And if that, and we gave it our all, and we ended up winning our heat, so we go straight through. I don't think any of us would have been let's go race, but let's make sure we don't win. I'm I don't think that's possible.
Yeah. I think you're right. And one thing that was that I wondered, and I know we've spoken since, but was where were you in 22, and what happened to that season, and what happened to you?
A month or so after getting back from Tokyo, I was doing some traveling with some friends, and I ended up tearing my labrum in this freak little surfing thing. It wasn't even an accident. I can't even say it was an accident, but I was trying to I really want to be able to surf and do all this. I wanted to be able to do all this stuff that I wouldn't do in the middle of an Olympic cycle. And so I was out in San Francisco surfing, and I was actually my hair was dry. I was walking into the water holding my surfboard, and my surfboard got caught in a wave, and I held on to it and just ripped my arm out of my shoulder. Luckily I was wearing a wetsuit, and I honestly think that saved me. And
really?
If I wasn't wearing the wetsuit, I think I would have torn everything, completely dislocated it. But I did end up tearing my labrum, and I had surgery in January. So 2021 to 2022 was very much a rehab year, focus on your weaknesses, rebuild. So I was a spare in 2022, which I was
Oh,
happy
were
that I
you?
got the opportunity to do that.
How was that being a spare? Because you were a spare in 2019 as well.
No, 2019 I didn't end up going. I had
Okay.
like I I pretty much had broken I was like a one row away from breaking my rib. So we decided to not
Yeah,
break the
fair
rib
enough.
and stay healthy.
So how was this being a spare experience? Were you looking at people wondering if you should help them trip down the stairs or something like that?
I mean, I definitely had thoughts. I was like, damn, like I really wish I could have had the opportunity to race. But I also do think it was a great learning experience. It was my first time at a world championships in general.
Mm,
And I was like just looking back at the year I had and what I like overcome from this injury. I was like, honestly, just being here is an accomplishment. And like having gotten to the point where I could row and I could be at this level took every ounce of patience that my body has ever had. So I think it was a great experience, and it definitely lit a good fire underneath me. Like, okay, I was the one sitting on the sidelines. I don't want to do that again. I know how it felt. Like, let's put yourself make sure you're in a position to not do that next year.
mm. So you're going to be 28 when hopefully you have experienced a full season and the Paris Olympics with a great result. I guess in one sense that's still relatively young. The next Olympics are in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I'm thinking you're a serial rower.
We'll see. We're still trying to figure that out. I'm definitely just taking it one Olympic cycle at a time. Being injured for most of this cycle has made it go by very fast.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
painfully slow at the same time. But overall, and 3 years flew by.
Hmm. You mentioned about the possibility of further studying. I wondered whether that, anyone like Oxford or Cambridge had approached you
I've
and
definitely
said,
gotten some emails more when I was just coming out of college. My further studying that is I'm trying to do is I would love to go to nursing school. So that's my goal
"Oh, wow.
immediately following the summer of the Paris Olympics, whether I'm racing or not. That is my number one goal, and do that for like a year and a half, and then see where I am with rowing. Maybe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What sort of nursing are you interested in?"
Still trying to figure that out. I in my head I would love to do like ER trauma. The
Wow.
adrenaline, the excitement. Nothing's ever the same,
Yeah.
but we'll see. I don't definitely have a lot to learn about myself and about the obviously going to school to know if it's something I truly want to do or if it's always just been a dream that I need to see through before I decide if it's right or not.
Yeah, that's interesting because I mean you're so young at 27, 28 in terms of sometimes you feel like you're quite old, but actually it's ridiculously young. Um, Tell me about baking.
Baking. Okay. It's one of my hobbies. I haven't been doing it as much recently, which makes me a little bit sad, but
Ah,
I haven't lived in my housing hasn't recently hasn't been great for baking. But it's just a way to it's a very great stress release. And then you get something delicious to eat after. And I also love baking things and sharing them with people and combining different recipes to make something a little more adventurous. And I love just making cookies too. Whenever, especially in college, my senior
yeah.
year, I would make cookies all the time. I think there's even one time that we had to fill something out for Yaz, and we were going. I think we were doing a little ski day on the weekend, and if there were, and some it was everyone had to fill this out for us to be able to go skiing, and I was like, okay, if everyone fills this out, I'll bring the team cookies after the ski. And there's 50 plus cookies, 60 cookies. And everyone does it. And I make a bunch of different cookies. So I'm always I love baking for other people and I love sharing it. either
Yeah.
baking with people or baking for people. It's
You
a great bonding thing that we've done a lot on the team.
Yeah, I can imagine that. You mentioned housing just at the start of that, and that made me wonder how easily is it to make ends meet, to find a house and to sort of feed yourself and do the things that you need to do.
I definitely wish it was easier. In Princeton, the rent is very expensive. So a lot of us live in host families that are just members of the community that open up their house
Mm.
to rowers, and we live there for free, which makes this all possible. But I think since COVID, there's been a little bit of a decrease in host families, which makes perfect sense. So it has been a little hard through this whole process, and something that I told myself that if I were to continue after Paris, I would want to be able to live on in my own apartment, pay rent and all that, which would mean I have to have other sources of income because rowing is not the most luxurious sport there is.
No, it isn't. It isn't. Do you have a hero or a role model in rowing, or because some people do and some others don't?
I think it would probably be Megan Misnicki. She just
Ah,
with everything she's accomplished and everything I've learned from her, I owe her a lot for who I am today. And I think she's just she is such a hard worker. She never turns down a fight. She is so fit. I can only dream of that. So I would say her.
yeah. Uh, 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 and I guess finally, just because we asked, we started out by your day, how it's been. What's your afternoon looking like?
My afternoon will be an appointment with one of our doctors to figure out some more of check some more boxes of the little injury hiccup I'm having right now. And then it will be some classwork. Wednesday is a deadline day, and I have left my homework for Wednesday. So I will be doing that. And then another sort of walk, move my body, rehab exercises. Nothing too exciting today, actually.
Yeah. Well, Brooke, we've been talking for over an hour. It's been absolutely delightful sharing the time with you, and
Yeah.
thank you for sharing so much. It's been wonderful. We'll end the live part of this interview now, but thanks everybody for watching. Bye now.
Bye.